Good evening everybody, as we start video 11 of the Dear Moody's series that I'm recording to ask Moody's to re-look at South Africa, not to downgrade us in November 2019. It's currently the last day of June and it's raining in Cape Town. We need the weather, we need the rain, and we also need the sun in summer, of course, and that's one of the reasons why I live here, because we actually have weather here. We have rain and we have wind, we have sun, and we have everything in Cape Town. So tonight we're going to look at a document about the City of Cape Town looking at policy. Remember that or commentary on policy, by professionals, so we're calling that commentary translation. We have 4 sections in this process, the series. First is called policy and law. The second is called translation, which is what we're doing now. The third is called commentary, and the fourth is called hidden messages. So this is translation, which means it's professional commentary. It was done by the Sustainability Institute in 2007, and it was funded internationally by E-Systems in Holland. It was a UNF-funded project and a UNDP project. So very good. It was written by Andrew Janisch, the late Andrew Janisch, who died way too young, in his mid-30s while working for the Western Cape government. And then a number of other people like Professor Mark Swilling, who's a university professor, and Brian Jones, who's worked in green energy in the City of Cape Town for more than 10 years. As you know, the South African energy industry is highly regulated, with various laws and government agencies. The Western Cape provincial government and the City of Cape Town have signalled their intent to pursue more sustainable energy options in their policy and strategy documents. Remember, this is in 2007. The feed-in tariff was being negotiated with Sharp, as we've spoken about already, and we were going to get to the point in 2008, November, where I was invited to Parliament because I already knew a couple of MPs and some other people, and I was in the announcement at the end of 2008 where the government announced feed-in tariffs. The feed-in tariffs were meant to start in April 2009, and they did start, but they didn't have photovoltaic panels, and they were above 1 megawatt, and they didn't have a power purchase agreement. 6 months later, they introduced PV, again only above 1 megawatt and no power purchase agreement. By then, I had spent a month overseas. It had cost me 200,000 rand, and I had also invested in my own renewable energy system, and I had spent a total of 300,000 rand by then to be ready for small-scale embedded generation, which never happened. At that time, the city's major energy sources were electricity 29%, petrol 28%, diesel 18%, and then paraffin, jet fuel, LPG, and so on. Electricity is the City of Cape Town's largest energy source and a significant contributor to municipal income. And this is one of the problems that we have with our municipal system in South Africa, and one of the reasons why South Africa is falling apart at the moment. Because South Africa's municipalities depend way too much on electricity income and not nearly enough on rates. And there's a historical reason for this. Rates affect landowners. Electricity affects tenants. Let that sink in for a minute. The landowner should be paying the value of his building. And if it has electricity, then the landowner should be paying higher rates. Rates are VAT neutral. There's no VAT on rates. And the VAT money goes straight to the City of Cape Town, or any city. The city should not be making any money on electricity sales or water sales or any other infrastructure costs that it buys centrally and distributes locally. This is one of our central biggest problems in South Africa, which is causing mayhem with municipalities. And if you read the report this morning, you will know that only 19% of municipalities in South Africa pass their municipal audits, and none in the Free State, which means that the Free State is already a failed state. However, we've spoken about embedded generation and embedded water and embedded food being made by local people. Some people might call us preppers, but I'm not a prepper because I don't want to live in a tent. I want to live in a house and have all the mod cons that I'm used to, such as a swimming pool, heated showers in the morning, a nice bed to sleep in, cooked meals on an electric stove or an induction cooker, air conditioning, heating, lighting, computers, networking, And today, as against 10 years ago, the price of renewable energy, including batteries and generators, is 10% of the cost of what it was 10 years ago. Andrew Yanish tried to, and the Sustainability Institute tried to get information about local costing from Eskom and the local Caltex refinery, who didn't want to disclose details of their operations for financial and competition reasons, but there isn't any competition. It was apparent from all operations stated that energy is big business. Well, we know that, with huge capital investments and operational costs. Furthermore, the energy sector is a major generator of wealth and employment in the Western Cape. So what have I written here? We need to understand that electricity and water is an enabler for the economy as a whole. The number of people employed by Eskom or employed inside the energy industry in the Western Cape, Green Cape's objective, is irrelevant when considers that 15 million more people would currently be employed if South Africa had enough electricity. And therefore, unemployment would be close to 3% instead of close to 40%. And amongst the youth, which is under 35 years old, unemployment is close to 55% in South Africa. And the main reason for this is lack of electricity and lack of water. So the fact that the electricity industry is a major source of wealth, that's fine, but employment, we're too focused on how many people can be employed inside the sector. We're not nearly as focused as we should be on employment outside the sector. The City of Cape Town set a target in 2007 of 10% renewable energy sources by 2020, which is only 6 months away. And as you can see here, I've asked numerous times for an update, sending emails to the mayor, to the premier, numerous times, no replies. What was the purpose of this report? Was it just greenwashing? That was the introduction. Here's the table of contents. You can see there's 68 pages in this report. It's comprehensive. And of course they said Cape Town's current energy profile is unsustainable. Someone like me comes along, an entrepreneur, an investor, and says, I'm prepared to invest. I'm prepared to be ready to help Cape Town to make it better. Not just for my own pocket, for my own pleasure, for my own money supply, but because I really believe in South Africa. That's why I came back here in 1995. 25 years later, in South Africa, I still don't earn what I earned in London. Yes, I have a nicer house and I have cars and all kinds of nice things, but from just an earning point of view, I earn more in London 25 years ago. So I'm not here for the money. And then there's national policy and legislation, energy white paper. We've all discussed all this already. We understand what that white paper is policy. In general, the policy enforces a shift to opening markets, prompting export industries, restructuring government assets, and re-regulating the energy industry. Well, they said at the beginning that energy is over-regulated, and now they say they want to re-regulate it. Well, we don't want re-regulation. We want regulation to be taken away. We want a leveling of the playing fields. And then the report goes through all the other laws and so on that support the Energy Act. Government. The policy sets out government's principles and commits government to actions to ensure that renewable energy becomes a significant part of its energy portfolio over the next 10 years, which means that by 2017, renewable energy should be a significant part of its energy portfolio. And I think right now it's about 3% of its portfolio. I would say that it gets to be significant when it's 30%. And I believe that all these policies and documents were designed so that Pravin Gordhan could go overseas in 2009 and get a massive $35 billion loan from the World Bank to fund Medupi and Kusile on the basis that even though it was coal funding, and coal funding was already going out of date even back then, that they would build renewable energy systems, which they didn't do. And then there was the National Energy Regulator of 2004, which was meant to boost private sector participation in the energy sector. This is how NERSA was sold to the public. But it didn't boost private sector participation, it kept Eskom as a monopoly. It said, as an economic regulator, NERSA should ensure a level playing field and prevent abuse by monopolies. That didn't happen. The regulator is important as it will encourage greater access and competition in a sector dominated by single major players: Eskom in electricity, Petronet in petroleum, and Sasol in gas. 12 years later, that situation is still the same. We want efficient manufacturing, we want a good and healthy environment, which is also in the Constitution. We want to help disadvantaged individuals. Let me just turn off my notifications, which is over do not disturb. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So we want employment. We've got the Gas Act. We've got the provincial government energy policy, which this is part of. I've said here that it prevented a private gas pipeline from being built from the Northern Cape gas fields to Cape Town. I've written that because whilst they wanted to free up energy and free up resources and make the place more competitive, the Western Cape government prevented a pipeline from being built from the Northern Cape gas fields to Cape Town. And Ankerlig, which is Cape Town's biggest use of diesel, it's a peaking power station. Uses 100,000 litres of diesel an hour when it's running at full production. If it had gas, it would be much more efficient and much cleaner. There's a Renewable Energy Action Plan for the Western Cape. There's the Local Government Energy Policy, State of Energy Report 2003, Energy and Climate Strategy 2005, Cape Town Energy Futures Report 2005, City of Cape Town Draft Solar Water Heater Bylaw 2007. And yet, nothing happened with all these documents except that we spent millions, maybe tens or hundreds of millions rands on documents. And investors came along and invested, especially local people, who lost everything in many cases. Some of my friends who went insolvent. Some of them who left the country. Some of the people I met at energy efficiency workshops and forums. The government says they want localization. Local people invested. They were keen of being interested, but they've all been put out of business. So government now has to import stuff from overseas. This is not how it's meant to be. This is where energy is consumed in Cape Town. There's a Western Cape electricity crisis. I think you're getting the point here of what's going on. Let me go and turn to my notes so I can see which page we need to go to now. Page 19. Okay, now we're on a different page because the document is different. So we're just going to see where we are. See all these documents, all these amazing things going on here. Okay, that was page 14, page 15. And you can see that the pages don't match the page number up here, which is what my problem is right now. And we get to this. The City of Cape Town in 2019 has taken the government to court because they're not allowed to have their own embedded generation. But this is in 2007 where it says the City of Cape Town owns a 160 megawatt pump storage plant at Steenbros. Which means that the City of Cape Town has its own embedded generation. And wind from the Darling Wind Farm. Yet in 2019 the city says it is not allowed to make its own electricity. Here's about the Darling Wind Farm. Here's about photovoltaics. Let's go and see what the next page is. Okay, we're going to go to page 64, but we're going to have to go further than that, because as we know from before, that's page 61. Lots of information. We need to provide sufficient capacity for future growth. There's transmission losses of up to 20% getting electricity to the Western Cape. I wrote here, Eskom currently has 60% availability, and with 20% line losses, we're at 40%, which is almost the same capacity as wind, which is 33 1/3%. So, people have been saying wind is inefficient, but right now, wind is almost as efficient as Eskom, at least in the Western Cape. The City of Cape Town plans to source at least 10% of electricity from renewables by 2020, and provincial government has a target of 15% by 2014. This didn't happen, and as I said before, I've written to the Premier, the former Premier, and the Department of Energy, and they will not tell me what the current status is. From the evidence presented in this report, it is clear that Cape Town remains on a path of unsustainable energy dependence. And this is the city's own strategy in 2007. Why did they write this stuff if they had no intention of implementing it? Why did they do that? And then there's more resources, information, and so on, references used in this report. 68 pages. Why did the government, the ANC government, write all their reports, all their policies that we've already been through? Create laws. Why did the Western Cape government and the City of Cape Town create their own policies and create their laws and bylaws when they had no intention of implementing them? I don't have this answer. Was it only to get hold of international financing for coal power stations? Was it to appease the international community because of the Johannesburg Conference in 2003, where South Africa committed itself to a clean energy future? Was it because of the Constitution, which says that we all have the right to a clean environment? If anybody can answer these questions, I'd be happy to hear your answers. Thank you very much.